Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I'm going to share with you perspective from a number of XRP chart analysts in this latest Moon Lambo hot jam, including one who says that an XRP supply shock is coming as XRP is flowing off of exchanges. And of course, what happens if demand in crypto, broadly speaking, increases? A certain amount of that interest is going to be in XRP and there's less available for purchase. Also, as it turns out, panicking over the last month, and there's been plenty of that in traditional finance, like the stock market as well as crypto, as it turns out, panicking didn't serve the people who panicked very well. Actually, including today. It's like a little micro example of what happened this morning. I'll explain at the start of the video. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, as I record this video, it is 8:02 p.m. Central Time, Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. It's the last day of the month, and actually markets, if you're in terms of charting, they already closed. I believe they closed at 7 p.m. Central Time, so about an hour ago. Things not looking too bad considering it's supposed to be the end of the world right now. Actually, all things considered, XRP at $2.19. Bitcoin at $94,436. But look what happened this morning. Here's a 24-hour chart for XRP. You can see this morning, XRP price cratered down to about $2.13. Same story with Bitcoin here, cratered down to $93,130. And then each of those coins, along with the broader crypto market, of course, popped back up and just kind of was about where it was before that dip. So what was that dip? It was because of this. Here's the headline from CNBC. U.S. economy shrank 0.3% in the first quarter as Trump policy uncertainty weighed on businesses. So, of course, risk on assets, stocks and crypto took a little bit of a beating this morning. Ended up not being that big of a deal even today. Which is why, so like the idea of seeing this news, seeing other people are selling because of this news and being like, I want to be like them. It's completely absurd to me. Bitch, I've been holding XRP literally for over 7 years. I have not sold one single XRP in my entire freaking life. And so the idea that there are humans out there that see something like this and I'm going to sell these things that are valuable to me because reasons, it's just laughable to me. The moral of the story, have broad exposure to markets, hold for a really long time, don't get caught up in the noise, and if you start to feel emotions, just understand that's what happens to the typical lemming retail speculator and then maybe consider behaving differently than them. And of course, I have no idea what's best for any individual human, including you, on an individual basis. It could make time to sell, just even if the market's going down, because you got to get some sort of funds for some sort of emergency, this or that. Yeah, I got it. I'm just saying on the whole, the idea of seeing bad news, it hits the feels that no, I must sell. No, get the hell out of here. Like that type of person, like they're not going to find success investing generally, but they're going to get devastated investing in crypto, which is the most volatile asset class that the human species has ever known. Especially, all these poor people, like not even a chance. There's like not even a chance that a person that's wired that way, unless they figure stuff out, not a chance they're going to win. And it's just a shame because there's so much opportunity here. You just have to have some damn conviction and hold for a while. To drive this point home, take a look at this point from Anthony Pompliano, Bitcoin maximalist. Famous Bitcoin maximalist, shared this with his 1.7 million followers though. He said, all that fear, uncertainty, screeching, and doomsday predicting over the last 4 weeks, and the S&P was essentially flat on the month. Block out the noise. Okay, that I certainly agree with. Now, technically, it was down, I think. It was about flat. It's very close to being flat, though. So what he said is pretty much correct. I think even if it's technically down less than 1%, like, I don't know. Not much, but not even every index was down. Like, take a look at this, for example. Here's another one from him. He said the NASDAQ 100 ended April up more than 1%, and people are still talking about the Great Depression. Insane. Isn't it funny how human emotions just, they cause you to say the silliest damn things here. There are so many reasons to be optimistic here. Things are lining up. There's lots of confluence here. Here's a post from chart analyst Jelly. He says, global liquidity leads and Bitcoin follows. Governments have started injecting money into their economies again, simply a matter of time until it drives Bitcoin higher. And I will continue to highlight this point, folks. Tons of reputable analysts increasingly talk about this. And it's not the end all be all. No metric is. Period. No metric is. This is a big one, though. This actually does matter. As it turns out, as liquidity increases, meaning businesses and individuals have more funds available, they recognize they got to allocate them somewhere. You got to do something with it. Where does it go? Well, a certain amount of this ends up in risk on assets like stocks and cryptos, and specifically, yes, XRP. Global liquidity leads what happens in these markets. So you can see global liquidity. Look at where it is. And then you adjust for the lead time, and you can see the correlation, obviously. That's what he's done here. And what do you think then comes next? Well, nothing's a guarantee, but most of the time, the correlation remains, which means if it's like most of the time, number go up. Number go up, my friends. Here's a post from chart analyst Ali Martinez. He says, the Bitcoin accumulation trend score is nearing 1, signaling that larger entities, or a significant portion of the network, are actively accumulating. You don't say. And I've highlighted this a number of times throughout April, as there's just been tremendous fear because of all the tariff stuff. The tariff problem is going to go away. It's going to cease to exist. We'll see how long it takes. Don't know exactly what form that'll take. But it's not going to persist forever, obviously. That's just a no-brainer, right? And so what's been happening? Well, the typical limiting retail speculators have been selling, and the smart money, the rich people and businesses, they've been accumulating. And there are a number of metrics that I've been highlighting throughout the month to point this out. This is the case. And it's not just with Bitcoin. I highlighted, too, there are a couple key weeks in April where the institutional flows into XRP specifically were off the charts. Absolutely off the charts. And by the way, at times when it was down for other coins. Signs of strength for XRP, I think it's safe to say. Here's a post from chart analyst Mustache. This is the crypto total market cap, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, so it's the total 3 chart. It says, the drops will be short, the upside potential huge. We are heading for the last big wave of the bull market. It's going to be more extreme than anything we've seen since 2021, in my opinion. And I'll just point out here that the analysts who have been here for a while, got a couple cycles under the belt, they are not concerned about whether or not there is going to be a final move to the upside. They've seen this movie before. History rhymes with itself. Doesn't perfectly repeat, but history does rhyme with itself. What is most probable? I'm with them. I agree that what's most probable, though I admit, of course, I can't know for sure, that what's most probable is you are going to see that blow off top, because usually, again, history rhymes with itself. And specifically with XRP, it's just been so artificially suppressed because of the government nonsense, which is now over. Yeah, if we're going to have a move to the upside, XRP is going to be one of the greatest beneficiaries of that, frankly. Take a look at this headline from the Daily Huddle. Wells Fargo, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, and UBS will open Bitcoin ETF services by end of year, Bitwise CEO Matt Hogan. And I love this, not because I'm super thrilled about Bitcoin. I care way more about the alts, my alts that I hold, but the implications specifically for XRP, actually, pretty big here. And I'll explain why. So check this out. The chief investment officer of the crypto asset management firm Bitwise says that mainstream banking institutions will launch Bitcoin exchange-traded fund services by the end of 2025. And folks, this shouldn't be surprising. The war on crypto is over. If you're a major firm like this, why would you not want to jump in? The water's nice and warm here. It could not be more obvious. Why would you leave that money on the table? So it's changed, and then obviously, at this point, with the crypto asset class having been around for 16 freaking years now, it's clear it's here to stay. There's real utility. Things can happen. Business models can exist that otherwise couldn't exist. Of course it's here. And you can fight about which coins are going to be here for the long haul. That's a fun conversation always. But no matter what, you argue about the right horses, the wrong horses to bet on, the asset class itself is here to stay. And so, yes, major firms jumping in, and you're going to continue to see this blurring of the lines where traditional finance melds with crypto, and then it's like, what counts as a crypto company now? Like, it's just a blurring of the lines. There's just going to be, and ultimately, and by the way, this goes the other way too. You do see, crypto firms, traditionally crypto firms that are known as being crypto, jumping into traditional finance. Wasn't it just Coinbase recently announced that they were going to go for a bank charter? So you're increasingly seeing the blurring of the lines. And so the idea that this wouldn't, of course it's going to happen. Of course this would happen. But there's a reason that I'm excited about this, and it's not because of Bitcoin. Anyway, piece continues. In a new note to investors, Bitwise CEO Matt Hogan says the 4 largest wirehouses in the world, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, and UBS, who together hold over $10 trillion in assets, will soon strive to give their clients access to the crypto king via ETFs. He said, quote, I suspect all 4 wirehouses will be open for business on Bitcoin ETFs by the end of the year. It's one of the reasons I still expect Bitcoin ETFs to set a new record for net inflows this year, despite pulling in just $3.7 billion so far in 2025, compared to $35 billion in 2024, end quote. Yeah, so that will be massive. The real reason I'm excited about this, though, it's more evidence of the inevitable adoption of all things crypto. Of course, we were right. This is stuff that would have seemed impossible, like when I jumped into crypto in 2017. Or I shouldn't say impossible, but it just seemed far away, I guess. That might be a more accurate way to share the idea I'm actually thinking. But of course, I always believe this type of thing would happen. It's just a matter of a new technology, over time finally becoming adopted and people embrace it and be like, okay, yeah, it does make sense. And that's increasingly where we are, but year by year, of course. Now, the reason I'm excited about this, though, is because with these major names embracing Bitcoin, you know what happens next, right? Obviously, there are going to be multiple XRP ETFs, and tons of these firms obviously will end up with XRP ETFs. But one of the coolest things, too, on top of that, there will be all sorts of ETFs that are baskets that will represent multiple cryptocurrencies. For instance, there could be a basket where if you buy the ETF, you get exposure to Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and whatever else. And because XRP is one of the obvious early winners of the space, it's going to be included in tons of various baskets. It's a large cap coin, of course. So a certain amount of money is always going to go in, meaning that people, even if they don't really research XRP or individual cryptocurrencies, they just want exposure, they're chucking money into the ETF and they can get broad exposure that way. That's the exciting thing. And investing that way actually does make sense. That's the reason that the S&P 500 exists. 500 companies, 500 publicly traded companies, the largest in the United States. You just purchase one thing and you get exposure to all of them. Yeah, that's amazing. That type of thing increasingly will be in crypto. And of course, XRP is going to be a part of it. So that's why I keep saying the amount of money that's going to flow into XRP, and this, by the way, to be clear, that does mean actual XRP does get purchased by the firms that offer the ETFs. So it materially impacts the supply and demand dynamics. That's why this is exciting to me. The ship has sailed on Bitcoin. I mean, fine, maybe it goes to more than $1 million one day. I'm not saying that's impossible. What I am saying is, in terms of opportunity for life-changing wealth on a more, appealing time frame, you can still get that with other coins, even large caps like XRP. So imagine going 10x on Bitcoin from here versus 10x from XRP. What do you think is going to happen first? From this moment in time, which goes 10x from this moment first, Bitcoin or XRP? Obviously, XRP. I think that's way more probable, right? Because why the hell wouldn't? And I'm not saying on a specific time frame, and it's not a price prediction. I'm just saying if you had to bet on one of those, which would you bet? If I had to, I would bet on XRP. There's way less money in it. It's way easier for that to happen. Here's a post from CoinDesk. They're sharing this interview, and I haven't seen this whole interview. I just saw this clip, but I thought I'd mention this. It's a quote from, or a clip from Dan Tapiero. He's the founder of 10T Holdings, and I'm familiar with him. I think he's a pretty insightful dude here. He's not an XRP fan, but he's not a troll either. He just seems to be, from what I've seen, like kind of neutral, if anything. But he does respect. He's a little bit more neutral. He's more like, if anything, he's pro XRP, I'd say. Like, he's speaking positively about it here. And acknowledging that it's got staying power, and he said that he affects that, its ability to survive, and that's very obvious. Which is why, to anybody that hates XRP, at some point, if you're going to be intellectually honest, you got to look inward, and if you think it doesn't make sense, you got to question what you got wrong at this point. Because it's been over a freaking decade. You got it wrong. If you think XRP doesn't make sense, you got it wrong. Find out why you got it wrong. Ask what did you improperly analyze? Was it just XRP derangement syndrome? Whatever it was, just look into it here. So anyway, he said that he respects XRP's ability to survive, and said very nice things about Ripple too, and what Ripple's consistently doing to do everything it can to be the best cheerleader it can for the XRP ecosystem. And they always have, and that always made sense, of course, because they hold the most XRP. Why wouldn't they want it to do well? Duh. And so his firm here, 10T Holdings, They actually don't, his holdings, they don't buy cryptocurrencies themselves. And they don't, they're not even VCs, like not even venture capitalists there. They're not trying to get the hottest new thing that might work where most of those things fail. Interestingly, he found a niche here, and they invest in firms in crypto, the companies in crypto, not the cryptos themselves, that are kind of like late stage. I mean, whatever you can call late stage, given that the industry is still pretty young here, where it seems like, okay, these firms are more likely to have some staying power because they've been around for a while. And so it's not a VC firm, not a crypto firm itself, but they invest in companies that are kind of like the backbone. And so you would think that at this point, Ripple would kind of be up the alley anyway, for a company like that. But setting that aside, that's what they do. This guy absolutely is in the know, and it's just nice to see somebody, in that position say positive things. Or like he gets it. He recognizes XRP does have staying power. XRP is an early winner of the space, and you know that. But you're one of the few humans on the planet that know that. Almost no humans know what you're hearing right now, and the things that you've researched. Almost no one knows that, but it's true. Here's a post from chart analyst Armin. I found this interesting. He said, XRP has just made its second highest monthly candle close ever. Bullish engulfing confirmed. XRP will flip Ethereum. Yeah, well, I won't be surprised if it flips it, but isn't that cool? As everything was allegedly falling apart in April, XRP still had its second best month closing anyway in history. That's pretty freaking cool to see. I'll take that. Here's a post from XRP chart analyst Bobby A. He said, how anyone can look at XRP's market structure and be anything but uber bullish is beyond me. This asset is going much higher this year. And by the way, he is one of the analysts that accurately called XRP breaking out this cycle. He clearly was correct. And he says much higher. And he does believe in double-digit price action this cycle. And if it's going to happen this year, well, sooner than later, folks. We're at the late stages of finally getting what we've been hoping and believing could come our way for years and years and years. I think we really are that close. Here's a post from chart analyst E. Greg Crypto, XRP USD chart. He says, XRP macro channel, $17 to $55. Whew. Man, the idea of XRP hitting $55 if there's no time limit, I'd say that's not crazy. And not that it's crazy, even if you think it's going to happen this cycle. I am skeptical of it happening this cycle, but happy to be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong. I doubt it, but maybe. Now, as far as it going to double digits, yeah. So it's always a fun conversation. Whatever you think is the most reasonable number, that's fine. But double digits, not crazy. So here's what he had to say about this, though. We're currently in candle number 5, and if history is any guide, we could be looking at a mega monthly candle. Following the same pattern, the target of $17 is definitely in play. Now, let's discuss the macro channel breakout, the measured move points to a potential high of $55. As for me, I have my eyes set on $27, but I plan to sell gradually as prices rise. Yeah, so I plan on doing the same as prices rise. I'm going to sell. I've talked about my range, so I won't in this video. But he seems to think that what's most probable is a peak actually closer to $27. Lots of analysts think that's the case. Lots of analysts think it's going to be like, low 30s. Credible Crypto think it's going to be probably somewhere between 20 to 30 bucks. They could be right. I'm much more skeptical of $55 this market cycle anyway. But hey, if it happens, I'm going to be cheering on everybody that's selling up that high. But I really don't think that's going to happen, honestly. So I hope I'm wrong. Like, honestly, I hope I'm wrong. I want you all to make a metric fuck ton of money. So, if that's going to help you get there, I mean, I'll be cheering you on for sure. Here's a post from chart analyst Stephis Crypto. I actually got two from him. The first one here, he wrote, XRP bottomed, now send it. And you can see that he's highlighting where we are right now, XRP in 2025 versus XRP in 2017. And I've talked about this so many times. Each of the last two cycles after XRP had its first major push, it moved sideways for about half a year and then rocketed. You can easily see it now the way that he put these charts together, which is why I decided to share it in this video. Look at 2025. Getting into that neighborhood where it's been about half a year since XRP started pumping in November. And is it going to be three times in a row where something similar happens? I mean, doesn't sound crazy. There's a lot of confluence. There's so many analysts that think that in the not too distant future, that's when you see crypto really heat back up. That'd be a third market cycle in a row where XRP did something strikingly similar. So let's see. Wouldn't surprise me, I'll say that. Here's another one from Steph's Crypto. He says, breaking XRP reserves on Binance hit lowest since November. Supply shock loading. That's always fascinating to me. And again, no metric is the end all be all. I'll always insist that's the case, but I still find these metrics interesting. It's always neat to find where there can be confluence here. But, Binance is the world's largest crypto exchange by volume. And so if people are taking XRP off of the exchange, that's typically a sign that they don't plan on selling anytime soon. If they're going to sell anytime soon, they wouldn't be taking it off the exchange. So then if there's less on the exchange, well, that's why he said supply shock loading. So there's less available. And is this at a time when demand for crypto, including XRP, is about to substantially increase? Well, then supply shock loading indeed. So we'll see if it comes to pass in that way. But it is worth noting a metric like that, especially for a major exchange like Binance. So we'll see what happens here. I'll just say I'm optimistic. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.